I read something interesting. I've actually read it
X-Men,
before.
I apologize for the telepathic intrusion, but from data gained at the HARP facility, I believe we've determined where the Brotherhood will strike next.
Is this the location Toad told us Mystique was so interested in?
Yes, Scott. And that location is the USS Arbiter.
Ain't that the new submersible aircraft carrier?
Indeed. Its exact coordinates are being uploaded to you now.
Professor, you don't suppose that the Arbiter is where they're keeping Magma?
Storm, I pray it is not. But you must proceed there immediately and stop the Brotherhood before they're able to achieve their goal.
Don't worry, Professor. We'll stop them. Dead in their tracks.
I have the utmost confidence you will, Wolverine. Good luck, X-Men.
I don't have any reason to complain about this pairing.
Think you're bad, Mutie?
Save.
I need a hand! Will do. Attack my target! Right.
Okay, can't target it.
Okay.
Got the...
Yes. Will do.
Another sentinel.
Got it.
Oh no, that was the short target. That target was for the fire. Anyway, back to what I was saying earlier. I read something. That was stupid. Again. In that Godzilla movie analysis I've got, it talks about when Marvel Comics in the, what was it, late 70s or early 80s, mid 80s, licensed Godzilla to do a comic book on it. And that it didn't last long. I think they targeted it for like 2 years.
I need a hand!
And the big reason that it didn't last very long
Got it.
is that Toho
Okay.
felt that Marvel didn't really respect the property. And I don't know what the context was, but somebody actually talked to Stan Lee at one point about the Godzilla comic.
Will do.
And Stan Lee actually said that, you know, he really didn't know why they had the Godzilla comic. would have chosen because, you know, the Godzilla concept is just, you know, really, really silly. And, you know, Marvel was about, you know, serious books like, and then he named whatever, you know.
You bet.
Let's see what you got.
And it's just, you know, you kind of wonder if, you know, that was just Stan Lee talking, or if he honestly, you know,
Right.
believed that, you know, Godzilla was a really silly concept and premise, unlike, you know, some of the superheroes that Marvel was doing. And it was just kind of weird. Then the thing is, though, is that I also know Stan Lee, as much as he's idolized by a lot of people, Stan Lee does an awful lot of just talking out of his butt, you know?
Let's see what you got.
Oh, whoops.
Attack my target!
Quit throwing grenades, you jerks. That appears to be
Okay.
that is not a way up, it's just... Oh, we've been blocked off. That's not nice. Whatever shall I do?
Yeah.
You
You
Bobby
bet.
to get out of my way, for one thing.
Yes.
Let's see what you got.
Follow me.
Okay.
Two
Just what I
level ups. We'll deal with those momentarily.
Think you're bad, Beauty?
I don't even know who said that. Who are you?
Attack my target!
Got it. My objective's been updated. About that.
I didn't think I could get any cooler.
Ha
Right.
ha ha ha. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Iceman puns are classic. I notice you wisely decided you don't have anything to add to the Godzilla versus superheroes discussion. And like I said, that's probably wise, because I know you're not really a Godzilla fan either.
Actually, I'd be happy to discuss it.
Oh, really?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, the relative merits of Godzilla is just silly, while comic book superheroes are not silly.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much just Stan Lee talking out his ass, because that's what he does.
Yeah. Oh, I finished the level.
Realistically, I mean, both are metaphors. They're metaphors for different things, but they're metaphors for, you know, common cultural fears.
See, that's... Classically, yes, I'd completely agree that that's, you know, that's what superheroes are, or were. The thing is, I think, you know, if you're talking classic Marvel superheroes, you know, when you're talking about the ones everybody remember, when the things that they started in the 60s, you know. Spider-Man and X-Men and moving on from that. I think that was the big thing that Marvel did, was they moved beyond the idea of superheroes as metaphor. But, you know, that's...
No, but they are still metaphor. I mean, they're well-characterized metaphor, but they're still metaphors.
Because the whole point of the Marvel superhero is that they're supposed to be real people and highly relatable.
Yeah, fully realized character.
Yeah.
The thing is, how highly relatable is Storm to you? You know, the whole Egyptian waif thief child who was worshipped as a goddess in Africa and has descended to the plane of mere mortals to fight crime in the U.S.
You know, I'm not sure where you're going with that for sure, but you actually just kind of made your point. Because my initial response was, you know, well, of course she's not relatable. She's a metaphor.
Uh-huh.
Now, of course, she's just not a metaphor for what superheroes were a metaphor prior to that.
Yes.
Because, of course, Storm was used, or at least eventual. See, and the thing is, this is where I get into a lot of issues. And, I mean, you're doing a lot of it with DC, seeing a lot of it with DC now.
Finally.
But you had a lot of it with Marvel when they were doing the things, when they started saying, you know, well, that's they're creating, you know, socially relevant and realistic heroes. And a big part of Marvel Comics was meant to be social relevance.
Mm-hmm.
And you can certainly see that. You can point to specific instances where that was clearly what Marvel was intending.
Mm-hmm.
And doing. And yet, at the same time, you look at a character like Storm, and, you know, you have to get into... Okay, yeah, you can say that, but do you realize that you've created an absurd character that you're now trying to use as a point of social relevance? See, and then you start saying, okay, are you just talking out of your butt again? Because, you know, this is what the social relevance thing is, the thing that you're pushing. And, you know, you originally created, you know, Lightning Lady, or, you know, Thunderstorm Lady, who was meant to be a classic superhero, but, you know, you quickly moved on to the, you know, okay, what'll sell to the kids is social relevance, so she's now socially relevant because she's black. Or, you know, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Whatever.
And we've given her, you know, African roots story.
Yeah. And, you know, I know that there's a whole lot of hardcore fans that can jump in immediately and say, well, you're not considering this and you're overlooking that and this was always meant to be. And, of course, I'd want to point out pretty quickly that, you know, for every point you can make that supports, you know, no, this was what was intended from the beginning, there is a counterpoint. you may not agree that that's what it is, but it is. Because
Well,
I see a lot of that in Marvel where they created pretty stock superheroes, and then for many of them, not all of them, they're socially relevant to kids. That was an aspect that they focused on later, or that they just claimed and never really even worked on.
well, plus you've got most of these really ridiculous origin stories like Storm's.
Yeah.
You have to understand that those were post-creation kludges that evolved over, a decade or more.
Right.
Storm didn't start off with this whole incredibly trite, look, she's black because Africa
Right.
backstory. She, there were bits and pieces here and there that made her intriguing until, 6 different writers let different things emerge that created something just kind of silly.
Yeah.
And, that's just one of the inherent risks of the comic book genre. Well, any genre in which you've got, creative writing teams who succeed one another to keep a franchise operating for decades.
Right.
It gets a lot of cruft.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I mean, Scott Summers' Cyclops started off with a kind of interesting, if very basic, superhero story. Where, he was a rich kid and his parents died in the plane crash that activated and broke his powers.
Uh-huh.
And, it worked. And then one day his father shows up aboard a Starjammer.
Yeah. See, because that's the other aspect, is that, Marvel certainly started out with a lot of these superheroes creating, these are just normal kids having to deal with issues, and that's Marvel's thing.
Uh-huh.
And then one of them turns out to be the child of aliens, or space explorers, or mutants created by you don't relate to that, or goddesses. You don't relate to that. That has nothing to do with, these are normal kids doing normal things. And see, that's a big reason why I didn't come to comic books as a kid. I mean, I knew what they were. There were some that I read. They didn't have any special significance to me. I think partly because, I was in the sweet spot for the evolution of the blockbuster.
Right.
I am the definition of a Star Wars kid. I was just old enough when the first Star Wars came out that was a formative influence in my life, those first 3 movies. And that blew away anything you could get in a comic book at the time and for another 15 years.
Fair.
The only things that were really good in comic books at that time were for old people who remembered, Golden Age or even certain Silver Age things. These were all things that were from before I was born. Or, you had a couple of good stories, but they were only relevant to long-term readers again. They weren't relevant to new readers. The comic book industry hadn't really gone into high range, high gear, trying to figure out how to start introducing new people to their comics yet. And so I started out on Star Wars, and who needed comic books? I didn't ever look into comic books until I was, a preteen, and suddenly realized that Transformers and G.I. Joe, there was more to those than the toys and the cartoons, there were comic books that promised to expand the story and get more in-depth than what you could ever do in the cartoon. And with one of those two particular titles, that was true. The G.I. Joe comic actually did that. The Transformers comic, not so much. It was, all things considered, it was worse than the cartoon was. The cartoon was the epitome of Transformers. But anyway, those were both, again, Marvel properties. The books were.
Mm-hmm. I never really got into those. My comic book preferences leaned towards superheroes and supervillains. I like villains.
Right.
They're interesting.
Well, and that's perfectly fair.
Well, and I was a few years too young for the Star Wars thing.
Yeah.
You know, I was born the year the first movie came out, so Star Wars...
Yeah, you missed that sweet spot. There
Yeah.
was about a 5 to 10 year sweet spot. If you were between 5 and 15, that was... And the thing is, 15 was really pushing the high end, because then you were a young adult by the time Jedi came out. And there's a really good chance that you were like, that was a kid thing. I'm not all that. Despite everything that we hear about adult fans of Star Wars, you still had drop off as you got older.
Yeah. Anyway, so I kind of missed the Star Wars boat. I was always aware of Star Wars, but I'm just going to confess that I was nearly an adult before I first actually saw the movies on VHS.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you're nearly an adult and you see Star Wars for the first time, you don't have the ability to overlook the gaping plot holes and logic waterfalls into eternity.
Right.
And, you know, add in that by this time, the special effects that were cutting edge at the time look sad and dated.
Right.
So, you know, I just
that's fair.
don't
That's
have the
completely
love
fair.
for Star Wars that, you know, my contemporaries a couple of years older than me have. So, you know, I was a comic book kid. I was comic books and D&D where you were, you know, Han Solo.
Yeah, I was definitely the epitome of the early '80s plastic toys. Star Wars, G.I. Joe, somewhat moving into Transformers, but the thing is, even by the time He-Man got popular, you know, I considered He-Man silly compared to the toys and franchises that I followed.
Oh, which is funny because I was actually a huge He-Man fan, and I was, you know, first wave She-Ra fan. I was like one of those hardcore fans who went to see the movie multiple times in the theater to, you know, launch the new line of She-Ra and
Right.
all of that silliness. You know, they were classic comic book superheroes with cartoons.
Yeah.
How could I not fall for it? And of course I've gone back and watched some of those cartoons in my adult years, and I'm really embarrassed to admit
that you
that
thought
you know,
that was
the
serious in quality.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, I feel the same way about all. See, that's, to me, Star Wars held up pretty good. Yeah, in my 20s, I could watch my Star Wars VHS tapes, and yeah, I plainly saw the traveling mats, and I understood them for what they were. When I was a kid, I noticed them, and it was almost like my brain just kind of ignored them, even though I remember seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as I got older, I know seeing other movies that had similar effects that didn't have obvious traveling mad edge lines, I started realizing, oh, that's an artifact of special effects because this is an older movie.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I still just kind of filtered past it and kept going.
Well, and the thing is, I can accept that, special effects is what it is, and 5 years after it's cutting edge, it's going to look dated and tired.
Right.
That wasn't Lucas's fault or anything else. That's just the nature of the beast. The things that bothered me about Star Wars, going back and watching it as an adult type person, were things like the elite shockwaves of the Empire, the stormtroopers, can't hit the broadside of a barn.
And the thing is, that's more standard movie tropes, not a Star Wars thing. It's just really prevalent in Star Wars because they succeeded in they filmed it well enough that you could see hundreds, or, in your mind anyway, hundreds and hundreds of stormtroopers, and all of them managing to miss. And, of course, our generation was never really big on World War II movies. Any of the action-adventure World War II movies, where you saw that all the time, too.
Yeah, Nazis also cannot hit the broadside of a barn, apparently.
Yeah, in movies.
Yeah.
In movies. In those classic adventure movies. Now, you get into the 90s and the 2000s, and you get some modern, more historically accurate, quote-unquote, some of them are, war movies where part of the point is to show that people die in war. Which was always something that they kind of skirted around or just barely dabbled with in the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah. But, there were just so many things like the stormtroopers. Well, here, let me give you another one that it's a little bit harder to explain as movie trope, although it is movie trope.
What's that?
Okay, Han Solo in the first movie, right?
Yes.
He gets involved because the old man pays him to do a job.
Yes. Yeah, he is a mercenary.
Yeah. Who then goes on to do a bunch of heroic crap for free. But okay, let's overlook a little bit of that because maybe he's hoping to get in the princess's pants.
Or the reward, the eventual reward.
Okay, by the end of the first movie, it has become apparent that the eventual reward is a shiny metallic disc that he can hang from his chest.
One thing I would like to point out, you saw all that money, that it's always been implied. It was never directly stated what was in those lockbox looking things that he was loading on the Millennium Falcon before the Battle of Yavin. It's implied that was the reward that he was promised. Tons and tons of money. From the princess's personal stash. Who knows? Maybe the Rebel Alliance keeps that much money on hand. You would think they would. But anyway...
How would they?
Well, that's neither here nor there. It's implied that's the reward, right? Because Luke says, okay, so that's it. You've got your reward, and he kind of nods his head or something. And now you're just leaving. And Han's like, really uncomfortable handling this. Because that's... Yeah, you could say that's anything. All we see is these things that look kind of like lockboxes. But, you get into movie making and you have to take they're talking about the reward. He's loading a thing we've never seen him handle before. And it looks like a big pile of something that probably contains pirate booty. Techno-pirate booty.
Yeah, whatever.
Which would perfectly fit.
It doesn't matter what form the reward takes.
But that would perfectly fit the kind of universe that Lucas originally wrote up and created the design aesthetic for. It's never established in any way he gave that back.
Fair. So he went on to essentially save the galaxy from the
Wish I'd brought a
Galactic
deck of
Empire
cards.
because they paid him off well enough in the first movie.
No, he went on and stuck around the Rebel Alliance for reasons that are never adequately explored.
Bingo.
But you can kind of read into it that there was safety, relative safety, from safety from being hunted by bounty hunters. That was kind of the implication from one of those early scenes in Empire Strikes Back, which is, you know, Han's been helping out the rebellion. He found a place to belong. He has friends here. He's an important person instead of just being on his own. But, you know, he's got that little scene.
It's not like I want to save the day or anything.
Where he says, you know, oh, yeah, but, you know, ever since we ran into that bounty hunter who recognized me, however many weeks, days, months it's been ago, it's been really hanging over my head that I've got the money. I really need to go pay off Jabba the Hutt now. And of course, Han has no way of knowing that Jabba's basically written his debt off at this point and just said, you know what, I want his dead body decorating my palace. I don't care about the money. I don't need the money. I want Han Solo's dead body because I need to show the entire universe that no matter how good you are, if you mess with Jabba the Hutt too much, I care more about having your dead body to display. I mean, that's typical crime lord gangster stuff straight out of movies.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of the implication with why Han sticks around.
Nothing to do.
But it is a
around.
completely valid question. I've heard dozens and dozens of people have discussed the why in the world does Han stick around? And to me, it makes perfect sense in a movie storytelling way. Now, in real life, yeah, that's it. If it were a realistic movie, I would want, an explanation of why Han has not gone to pay off his debt to Jabba the Hutt, at least by the end of the series, because we're never given to understand prior to Return of the Jedi, we don't understand that the debt to Jabba the Hutt is even a serious issue. Mm-hmm. Because you never see Jabba in the original movie release, and even in the scene that was partially filmed and then was put in the special edition.
This is fun.
Yeah.
It's a comic scene.
Yeah.
Even how it was originally intended to be presented, Jabba wasn't a serious threat. He was meant to be a small-time bumbler criminal that Han could, literally step on and get away with it. So prior to Return of the Jedi and the inclusion of the rescue from Jabba's palace, we didn't even know that the Jabba the Hutt thing was even a serious issue. But, when you're 12 years old or 10 or whatever and get that opening crawl for Return of the Jedi, and it's like, Han Solo's been frozen in carbonite and is now being held in the palace of the notorious vile gangster Jabba the Hutt. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember that guy. They mentioned him. They mentioned him. That was it at that point. I can talk way too much on this. I apologize for that. But not a lot. Okay, do we go on the timer right after this?
I don't recall.
Wish I'd brought a deck of cards.
It's the second we go downstairs, we go on the timer. Sentinels.
Think you're bad, Beauty?
Too bad the
No more deck.
didn't kill you off, ex-morons. Going down!
I missed it. Did he just fall off? Jump off?
The implication was that he created a gravity well large enough to suck him through the flight deck.
Oh. Okay. I'm gonna have to go back and watch that frame by frame. Masking device. Ah.
You're going down.
Who said that? You?
The camera is your ultimate enemy in this game.
It's pretty bad,
It's
yeah.
not intended to be, but it kind of ends up being.
Because it can lead you to go places that you don't intend to go. And then you're in trouble. But I'm guessing we're meant to go this way. I bet that hurts.
I can't lift this.
But it can be lifted.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Problem solved.
Resolved. I wonder if there's a...
Time you freaks.
Damn it! Wolverine, quit flying through the air.
I can't lift
Ooh,
this.
he can't lift it either. I probably shouldn't attack a missile.
Think.
Ooh, tissue regenerator.
Well, not for Wolvie, but
No, not really.
you
All right.
got someone targeting you.
Get your corpse out of my way.
Yes, I feel as strong as a hurricane!
Good to know. Who's in my way?
Right.
I love that really snarky right that she does. Okay, there must be more things. Yep.
Careful.
Got nothing. See, and then the camera can get down under here because you're underneath, which is really neat.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they really tried with this game. They really did.
Yep, the technology just wasn't there yet. I mean, speaking of dated special effects and
Yeah,
things.
camera AI script is problematic.
Will do.
Bobby, can you do something about this fire? I don't know if I need to.
No.
No,
Plot
it won't.
fire.
Yeah, it won't target.
No, that's plot door fire, honey.
Will do.
Yes.
Well, that didn't work very well.
No, it didn't.
You're going down.
Who said that? People keep saying things to me. Wolverine. Well, this is neat. It's apparently completely useless, but it's neat. Now, I like it when games include stuff like that. Now, of course, I guess this was,
X-Men, those ranks.
I guess this was more of an issue, back during this time period when we were still working on trying to get, we were dealing with storage room. Ooh, I got another unique.
Right.
Watch out. I only say that because you seem to not quite grasp the whole explosive barrel thing.
Yeah, I've seen. Is that in the? Ah!
Yeah, that's
Yes, those
Guys,
are
attack
those
my
are
target.
explosive. Oh And at this point, that of course, we're gonna get more advances. Boy, putting that accelerator on Storm made a heck of a difference.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Start remembering to do that more often.
You think?
Too heavy.
And do
Right.
a floaty.
Too heavy for Wolverine, too.
All right.
Those did nothing.
You bet.
That, Bobby can put that one out.
I'm on it.
I mean, just to make him feel useful, I guess.
I saw a funny comment the other day about useless comic book characters.
Yeah.
It implied that Aquaman was fueling global warming
Yeah.
to send a flood over all the earth to give himself, you know.
Wow. Now that's one I kind of would really like to get back to at some point. I really liked when DC started the New 52, one of the good. Get out of the way!
Yes,
Is that an
Aquaman.
extraction point over there?
Aquaman was awesome in the New 52 comics.
Yes, there's an extraction point over there
So go
that I
save.
wandered right by.
And that's a
That's-
plot point.
You activate that and it opens the door.
Yeah, so that you can go down and do bad things.
Okay.
Follow me.
I can't remember how to do it now. We move that over.
Right.
Ah! Camera, stop it.
Go save before you do any nonsense.
Yeah, you're probably right. Up here.
To the right.
Hang on, there's another fire.
You bet.
Bobby can put it out.
I'm on it.
I don't think he needed to. There's a save point. Oh, and I need to level up Storm. Change team. Details. Let's see. Get the lightning strike up again. Already did that. And back. And back. And then save. And that's probably where I need to stop here. Doing all of the deck. Did it not save my level up? It didn't.
Start button.
Sometimes you can do it without doing this. I don't know. I just don't get it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do the breaky thing. Here. I think I have to shoot it? Doesn't look like it though. I mean, that sure doesn't work. I mean, it's one of those things, I'm sure I'm missing something obvious, you know what I mean? That's all it took. Now, if I remember correctly, if you walk up to the edge, it'll basically tell you, you know, the next area. Or maybe you just jump down. I don't want to jump down. I want to save. And then quit, probably.